Something a bit less funny that I thought we'd cover is that things are about to get just really worse, actually. And you're going to find yourself in situations where you think, well, hang on, how did this happen? Don't we have systems in place that prevent people who aren't necessarily the best and brightest from flying a plane or operating on me after I've been injured or something like that, defending the country maybe? And the answer is no, because we have diversity. And therefore the standards have to come down. But before we begin, go and watch our latest symposium on the linguistic subversion of wokeness, because, of course, it is, as it says on the thumbnail there, a sort of conceptual psyop, which is why we need to now start suddenly lowering all the standards. So let's begin with California, because why wouldn't we begin with California, right? So California's State Education Board voted to adopt a new and much debated maths framework on Wednesday, concluding a years-long process that is going to make mathematics learning in California much worse than before. Why not, right? The 1,000-page framework aims to put meaning-making at the center of the maths classroom, promoting a focus on problem-solving and applying maths knowledge to real-world situations. It also encourages teachers to make maths culturally relevant and accessible to all students, especially students of color that have been traditionally marginalized on the subject. You feeling good about this?
It's it's always the way what starts off in the US comes here, and of course there are many worries for anyone who's got kids at school.
Oh yeah, it begins in California and it ends up here. That's exactly right.
The California to UK pipeline.
Yeah,
and it's if you're a parent looking to send your children to a school somewhere, you've got enough things to be thinking about and enough criteria you're judging schools, and now you have to find out whether they what their agenda is with this kind of stuff. And
Linda Darling-Hammond, the president of the California State Board of Education, will tell us. In fact, she'll say, "The United States has not been teaching math effectively or equitably. We are one of the lower achieving countries, and California is below the national average on its achievement in mathematics. This is an area of great need, and change is imperative. The same old will not get us to a new place." And so they, of course, are teaching social justice in the math class. They say, I mean, literally, the maths class could be a venue to discuss social justice themes or solutions to public policy problems. Such an orientation towards social justice has faced sharp criticism from some members of the maths community. There is a maths community now. In an open letter in 2021, over 1,000 signatories, many of them maths and science professors and business professionals, outlined pieces of a prior draft of the framework that they said would politicize the subject in a potentially disastrous way. While some of these aspects have been revised, the focus on social justice remains throughout the document. Thank God. Social justice through mathematics.
So this will be in the sort of, because I am aware of his work through what James Lindsay has highlighted in the past. This will be the Paulo Freire method of trying to teach maths, won't it? Where it's
quite possibly.
Okay, if a billionaire has 2 billion and then adds another 2 billion on top, how many billions has he stolen from the proletariat?
How much climate change do we have? Yeah, it's literally that. And so in Massachusetts, they've decided, you know what, we could just cancel maths because it's racist, actually.
Big math supporter, me.
Yeah. Cambridge public schools have begun phasing out advanced maths courses in grades 6 through 8 around 2017. In fact, this started when district officials noticed sharp racial disparities in the program.
Is that maths' fault, though? Could it be? I mean, there's two factors I can think of how teaching goes. One is the student, and one is the teacher. So maybe one of those is failing and not the concept of maths altogether.
Well, students who are being placed in the advanced maths track were overwhelmingly white and Asian, if you can believe that.
I can.
And the lower level courses were filled primarily with Black and Latino students.
I can also believe that.
Yeah, and so the parents are going to have to hire private maths tutors, which of course actually exacerbates inequality because only some of the parents can afford that. So talented students who would be able to do this are now not allowed to do this because of economic inequality.
I mean, that's what this always comes down to, isn't it? It just takes those people who would be the cream of the crop and shoves them down back into the mire with everyone else.
Yeah, but that's racial equality for you.
We can only do these things when, when things are going well economically and socially. These things can creep in, but children spend so little time at school anyway. Increasingly less time. I think a lot of kids and most kids in the UK is less than half a year, and the rest of the time they're on holiday. The time that they have in school, if you take the focus away from maths and reading and writing for those younger children, it's so wrong and so evil, really, and especially when you're using it to push this political agenda. But it's beyond schools. It's the same with businesses. If you're using your resources, taking on diversity officers and equality managers, that's it's fine if your business is doing incredibly well, if you've got money to throw around, but it's an exercise in inefficiency.
Well, I think you're actually right, completely right, that in this particular case, I mean, what this is doing is literally retarding the education of children in order to achieve a political goal, which is evil. You're absolutely right.
This is decadent behavior.
Yeah, but let's carry on, because for the sake of equality, to become a teacher, you've got to pass an exam. And if you fail to pass the exam, then most people would have said, well, that's a you problem, right? The exam is the same for everyone. But it turns out in New York State, actually, it turns out it was racism that did it. And so a bunch of 5,200 Black and Hispanic teachers or aspiring teachers who kept failing the teaching exam are going to collectively collect $1.8 billion in payouts. There's one guy here getting $2 million because he failed an exam, and that's racist.
I wonder how it was racist. Was there a spelling test where it asked you to spell a particular word? Is that what was going on here?
And of course, it's not this guy that's negotiated that.
Well,
there are organisations of people taking a big cut of that 1.8 billion.
That's exactly right. In fact, let's watch a video of the guy, because the guy clearly is not fit to be a teacher, but obviously not in charge of what's happening here either.
That was nice. The lady, the lawyer said it was very nice, and they knew I wasn't taking them serious because I just wasn't taking them serious. Why would you send me letters and tell me about lawsuit? Because I know lawsuit either they go through or they won't go through. From reading, hearing news, and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I know a couple of people that had well, not in education, but they went through lawsuits and they didn't win or anything like that.
So that's him talking about the lawsuit.
Yeah,
they were saying things I didn't believe
It's a
them.
bit difficult to decipher.
Not the world's greatest communicator, right? So I can see why he keeps failing this exam. I don't think it's racism that made him fail the exam. So anyway, these are the teachers of the future who are going to be teaching your children how to do mathematics. And it gets worse as you go higher up the chain, of course. Peter Boghossian found this amazing article in the University of Chicago, right? Just listen to the abstract in this, right? In this article, I take on the question of how the exclusion of Black American women from physics impacts physics epistemologies. I highlight the dynamic relationship between this exclusion and the struggle for women to reconcile Black woman with physicist. I describe the phenomenon where white epistemic claims about science, which are not rooted in empirical evidence, receive more credence and attention than Black women's epistemic claims about their own lives. To develop this idea, I apply an intersection analysis, blah, 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 blah. It's like, right, what are you talking about? How does this, what does Black women's epistemic claims about their own lives have to do with physics? The answer is, of course, nothing. It's got everything to do with social justice. Anyway, that was America. Let's come back to Britain. How do you fancy being judged by a diversity-hired judge? You've been falsely accused of a crime. You're white.
Do I have time to say farewell to my family?
Great question. But the Conservative government have decided that thousands more can apply to become judges under plans to expand diversity. New rules will see up to 4,500 more lawyers from diverse backgrounds, specifically racially targeted here, eligible to become judges under new plans announced by the government. How are they going to do that? Well, they're going to abolish the need to be qualified. I know, right?
hate
They
Tories
are
so
li-
much.
right. Normally, you have to have some sort of legal qualification and something like 7 years' experience as someone in the court in order to become a judge. And they've just decided that the Institute of Legal Executive Lawyers just are not required to hold a university degree now and can gain their qualifications while working. You just don't need one.
Well,
It's extraordinary. They can peddle this stuff without any kind of recourse to rationality.
Yeah.
This doesn't make sense at all. But of course, this is what we're doing. This is entirely beyond all reason. But that doesn't matter. This is the right thing to do.
This is the Conservative government.
It's so clear to anyone aware that this is going and reading about it. This is a recipe for disaster. And yet, but don't say that because that's not very virtuous of you.
I know people who've studied law at university. I know 2 people, and they both were there in university for years and years and years. And I saw the amount of paperwork that some of them had to do.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. The books that you have to read, the level of case law that you have to go through, the fact that you have to go through all of this different bits of legislation. Did you know in the UK?
Just learn it on the job, mate.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so I
Just learn it
suppose
on the
so.
job.
Yeah, I'll do it on the night.
Yeah. Just.
No, but in the UK alone, we have, I think it is 20,000 pages worth of tax law.
Yeah, I bet.
Alone. I mean, that makes perfect sense to me, given how the state of our taxes.
Yeah,
But it's the fact that there is not enough time in most people's lifetimes to be able to read through and understand and comprehend all of that. And now these people are just going to get it because they're darker than us.
Yeah, that's literally. I mean, have you considered that, quote, the move will increase the number of judicial roles that legal professionals from underrepresented groups can apply for, better reflecting modern multicultural 21st century Britain, Harry?
Well, I mean, it will, broken and falling apart.
It will.
Nobody understands what the hell is going on constantly. White people are at the bottom of the food chain. Then, yeah, that makes perfect sense. It will reflect that better. Thank you.
The legal system can stop functioning just like the rest of the country has stopped functioning, Harry.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And it already wasn't functioning that I can tell, but...
Do you want to know what Justice Minister Mike Freer said?
Oh, enlighten me.
Again, I mean, he's a conservative, right? So he says...
That
quote,
means so little.
I know, right? He says, quote, we are striving to build a legal system that truly reflects the range of voices in our society. This change shows how important the broader legal profession is to our goal of breaking down barriers, average conservative, right, and boosting eligibility as we recruit more diverse judges. Just, what are we doing?
You could just smell the fear about these people. You can feel them.
Yeah.
Their bumhole twitching while they're writing or saying this stuff. Oh, I just want to keep my job. I just want to keep my job.
And
Need to say the right things.
Did you see that post that's going around on Twitter recently of the leftists saying, like, I've read through all of this right-wing work and I've just got on to Edmund Burke, and it turns out that all conservatism and right-wing thought is just trying to preserve hierarchy. Well, no, it isn't actually. In England, conservatism is just trying to do the left better.
Yes, that is. My thing's about to run out of battery, so I'm going to have to use the...
Oh, no.
I know.
Going to have to adapt.
I know, this is awful, right? Anyway, so in the UK, previously, I appear to have clicked on something I shouldn't have clicked on.
Oh, no, his battery's run out and everything's going wrong. Carl's battery is run out now.
No, it's not my battery, isn't it?
Well, to your point about... the Conservatives trying to outdo the Labour Party was extraordinary. Keir Starmer came out a few days ago and said the Tories actually need to lower taxes and reduce public spending. Wow.
Yeah, you know why that was?
To tell us that.
I know, it's because Tony Blair came out and said it in an interview on Peston.
Yeah.
And Keir Starmer is just doing whatever Tony Blair will tell him to do. And to be perfectly honest, it's better than what we've got right now.
Of course.
I hate the way the country's being run.
I can't believe I just tacitly endorsed Tony Blair. I feel sick to my stomach. But this is what modern Tories have done.
Anyway, so previously, before the Conservatives decided that we didn't really need law and order, you had to have 5 years of legal work and a relevant legal qualification as a barrister or solicitor. So that's gone. Don't worry about that. Anyway, moving on. How about medical schools? I mean, it's one thing being falsely convicted for something because you've got a diversity judge. It's another thing being operated on by a diversity surgeon, right?
Wow. Yeah. Well, they start off with the jobs that are more where the skills are slightly more difficult to define, and they come for the very highly skilled, very definite jobs where you really do need to know what you're doing.
Well, as the New York Post here says, how are medical schools most woke? Affirmative action. 100% of them have admissions policies and practices for encouraging a diverse class of students. Fully 85% have leaders who have used demographic data to promote change within their institution. Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. In other words, medical schools are giving skin color and gender a consistently bigger emphasis in recruiting. This approach risks deprioritizing merit, leading to a low quality of medical students. Yes, it does. And we actually have an example of this.
Oh, no.
Have you ever heard of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. / Drew Medical Center in Los Angeles?
Which operated for just over 30 years.
Yeah, got shut down in 2007 because people called it Killer King.
Oh, that's quite clever.
This is a great thread by Richard Hanania here, actually. So he says, here's the story of MLK Jr. Hospital. The problems appeared right away. In 1975, the LA Times reported on horror stories implying neglect and incompetence. Employees were said to be drunk on the job or on drugs stolen from the hospital pharmacy. In a letter from a nurse in 1977, they gave it the moniker of Killer King. Nothing was done for decades. It took an LA Times report in 2004 to reveal how bad things had gotten. According to one accreditor, the hospital had problems of orders of magnitude that were substantially greater than almost all other hospitals in the country. This hospital had spent $20 million on malpractice payouts in 5 years, between 1999 and 2004. Adjusting for the number of patients it saw, this was the worst figure of any hospital in the entire state of California. Patients would come in with minor medical issues and end up dead. I don't mean to laugh, but what is going on, right? Locals would run away from ambulances in order not to be brought to Killer King.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Police officers had an understanding that if their colleagues were shot, they would not allow them to be taken there.
Bloody hell.
Why was nothing ever fixed? Well, that's the question, right? So you won't be surprised to learn, he says, that the community activists denounced those who tried to do anything about the hospital as racists.
Obviously.
This literally is it's go on.
The only explanation for all of these people dying in this hospital would be just out of spite, right?
Yeah.
That's right. I'm that racist.
I just hate this hospital. For some reason, it's because people in there are black. Maxine Waters organized a demonstration in 2004 that included Jesse Jackson. And politicians were cowed into silence for decades. Finally, it was shut down in 2007. And people stopped dying so much.
So Maxine Waters, big fan of murderous hospitals?
Yeah, she's really doing a good job there. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Because you feel like taking a flight.
Not with these two. I'm sorry.
You're a racist, Harry. What are you talking about?
Yes, I am. I'll admit it right now. If that's what it takes to avoid getting in a helicopter piloted by these.
Yeah. Last year, the New York Times were like, you know what? Piloting is stubbornly monolithic. About 95% of airline pilots in the US today are male, and nearly as many are white.
If it works, if it ain't broke.
But the airlines are struggling to find enough pilots and to diversify a profession that's been very resistant to change. I would really rather this profession be really resistant to change. Like, I'm thinking about traveling to America later this year. I don't want the planes to just drop out of the sky.
And planes have a remarkable reliability rate for now.
Yeah, for now. It literally is for now, right? Airlines have started to do more diversity. United recently launched a flight school with the aim of hiring thousands of pilots in the years ahead, at least half of them being women and people of color. Could they all just be good, please? Right.
Yeah, well, that's the worry is airlines don't have the resources to indulge in this sort of nonsense, and inevitably the level of inefficiency is going to lead to is going to cause accidents. You know, if they could instigate long-term, training programs, to cement their diversity agenda, that's fine. But everything's about fast tracking and ticking boxes regardless of rationale and reason. In an industry like that,
it's just not where you want to hear it. Right?
Going to lead to a lot of deaths.
It's just not where you want to hear it.
I'll take the vote, thanks.
Yeah, right. Oh, I mean, I'm sure that's going to get far more diverse as well. But ABC did another article talking about this recently. Well, actually, this was last year, but anyway, they say at the height of summer travel, as airlines brace for pilot shortage, because remember, a lot of them got fired for refusing to take the vaccine.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So there's a bunch of qualified, experienced pilots who are no longer flying. As I say, some airlines are making efforts to attract the next generation of pilots who have been historically excluded from the industry, women and people of color. Okay, great. Commercial airlines are also pushing efforts towards diversity, including Delta Airlines, which launched the Delta Propel Career Path Program. The program offers an accelerated path to the flight deck for selected students across 13 universities around the US. Thank God. If there's one thing I want, it's for them to cut corners and just shove them through without getting the proper experience. Oh, that's brilliant.
Also, it's the sort of job where you'd like to think it was a vocation for people, that they've always wanted to do it since they were a kid, and it is something that they're very committed to, rather than the fact that they've seen an advert somewhere saying, "Oh, we're hiring people based on diversity," and thought, "Oh, there's money there. This is an easy opportunity for me." It's not the sort of people who want flying planes.
Yeah. The sort of people who got headhunted because they didn't have anything better to do.
Yeah.
I mean, at least with this, I can die happy, surrounded by people screaming as we head further and further closer to the ground.
Yeah.
Just looking over me like, I told you diversity was a bad idea, didn't I? Yeah. Didn't I? Delta's commitment to developing a diverse workforce is that is reflective of the communities we serve domestically around the world is unwavering. Brilliant. I don't care about representation in pilots. I care about taking off and landing.
All I want to hear from airlines about is safety and efficiency. Are you going to leave on time and arrive on time, and am I going to arrive in one piece? I really don't need to hear anything else. Public statements.
And if that's racist, airlines, so be it.
And if they are issuing public statements about anything else other than that, it's a cause for alarm.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? But what about the US Air Force? I mean, you're only protecting your country. It's only China, Russia. You've got to worry about. But as Colonel Mark Wooten of the US AF Civil Air Patrol says, we need to stop hiring middle-aged white people, especially dudes. It's only your country.
What about dudes in dresses?
Well, actually, that's a great question. What about dudes in dresses? Well, we have an answer to that, because a memo was leaked to the dossier from the Department of Defense that goes into great detail on the topic of care of service members who identify as transgender. So they're going to get taxpayer-funded care, obviously, right? They will also receive a waiver for grooming and uniform standards, so they can go in purple hair if they want, right? They will also receive an indefinite waiver for physical fitness standards. The waiver often becomes a de facto permanent situation, and the transgender identifying service member just has to renew the exemption request every 6 months.
That image says it all.
Yep. Service members who identify as transgender will be considered non-deployable for up to 300 days while taking hormones for their transition period. So they won't even have to go on deployments. Again, given these hormones are required for life, this may render the transgender identifying service member as permanently unable to deploy. God, can you feel the standards dropping?
So they're just there to fill in a place on a spreadsheet.
Yes. Don't you just feel defended? Don't you feel secure? Are you just looking forward to going to the hospital, getting on an airplane? Are you just convinced that your children are getting the best that can be provided at school?
It's very difficult to trust any organisation or businesses who indulges in this sort of thing, because it feels like you're not getting things done. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. The whole, the nature of your business organisation, you're focusing on this virtue signaling political agenda that and it's taking you away from your purpose, and it's very difficult. You wouldn't want to do business, or you wouldn't want to associate yourself with organizations like that, because you think they're
mental.
It's just not trustworthy, because they're not doing what their intended purpose is for, what they're set up for.
Yeah, but they are diverse and progressive.
Well, they are, yeah.
I mean, you know that person's pronouns. See, I didn't know my pilot's pronouns last time I got on a plane. I mean, how unprogressive was that?
What army? What enemy force? US Army. What enemy force of America isn't going to start shaking at the knees the second they see an entire battalion
They're
of
not
this
going
person?
on deployment. They've got hormones to take. They're permanently non-deployable. Anyway, we'll leave that there. But,
I mean, she'd look like she have a hard time being deployed up a flight of stairs. At the top of a flight of stairs, she'd look like she'd be retiring from action.
So anyway, things are about to start getting really, really more progressive and possibly quite dangerous. So good luck out there, folks.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the premium videos, this one on why ideology is theology. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.